in Morrow. I said that wrong. McDonough now. It used to be in Morrow, Georgia, and before that it was at Oregon, Illinois, from 1935. It opened in 1935. The denomination with which we are associated is the Church of God of the Faith of Abraham. We believe that the covenant made with Abraham is the foundation of the Christian gospel. Show your friends Galatians 3:8, which says that the gospel, please note, was preached ahead of time to Abraham. That's very important. People don't seem to know that. Anyway, these dear people in 1850 said, my goodness, Jesus is coming back. The gospel is based on the promises made to Abraham that he would inherit the world and be prosperous and have a famous seed who turned out to be the Messiah, a famous descendant. And they said, you know, God is one person. That's amazing. God is a single person. That's what Jews always believed. But thanks or not thanks to the church fathers from the 2nd century onwards, that splendid truth was lost, fudged, muddled by Greek philosophy. And so people came up with a very strange idea that God is really three, but not really three. He's one, but not really one. He's three. Very confusing. And then they killed each other over people who didn't believe that. So we're trying to get ahead of that game, if you like, and go back to the words of Jesus, the Shema, which we will now say together. It goes like this in English. Listen, Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Or if you like, the Lord is one person. He's one. Doesn't matter how you translate it. Never get in arguments about how to translate it. A confession is supposed to be clear. We all know that in America, when you sing the national anthem, you don't sing the one in England, which is
God save our Queen.
I've been in America too long. God save our gracious Queen. You don't sing that in America's national. Everybody knows that. Listen, everybody knew that Jesus was a unitary, that's the language, unitary monotheistic Jew. And so you're going to not pester, but invite your friends to consider this astonishing fact that in Mark 12:29, Jesus is asked by a friendly Jew there, who's checking him out, who says, Rabbi, tell us, what is the great commandment? And Jesus said, the great commandment is, Shema Yisrael, listen Israel, don't get this wrong, the Lord our God is a single Lord. And you're to love that one single Lord God with all your heart and your soul. And Jesus adds the word mind, your intellect, thinking about it. That's what you're to do. That's where religion begins. But we strayed from that from the 2nd century onwards. So our little attempt here is to do what also Isaac Newton and John Milton and John Locke, the brightest brains of their century, were very concerned with. Isaac Newton was obsessed with the notion that we need to get rid of the Trinity, which is, he called it, ye strange doctrine of three gods in the West. Three gods in the West. Isaac Newton was not an idiot. Now, I don't think he got everything right. None of us does. However, he was terribly concerned that the doctrine of the Trinity was a mistake and very confusing, as was your President Jefferson, and 4 or 5 other presidents of the USA were very perturbed, as we are, by the notion that God is supposed to be three in one. So, before we start in Daniel, I wanted to read this to you. Here from 1550, a little bit of history is always a good thing. Here's what the advice was, which was given to the cardinals, by the cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church, to Pope Julius III. The cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church in 1550 advised Pope Julius as follows. Quote, reading the gospel must be permitted as little as possible, especially in modern languages and in the countries under your authority, O Pope. The tiny amount which is generally read at the Mass should suffice, and it should be forbidden to everyone to read any more than this amount. So long as the people are happy with this limited amount of the gospel, your interests, O Pope, will prosper. But as soon as they want to read more, your interests, your Honor the Pope, will begin to suffer. Here is the book which more than any other will spark off rebellions against us Catholics, such storms as threaten to ruin us. Indeed, whoever diligently examines the teaching of the Bible and compares it with what goes on in our churches will soon enough find the contradictions and see that our teachings often differ from those of the Bible and are even more often opposed to the Bible. Come on now, folks. Is everybody hearing this? You Roman Catholics out there, listen carefully. If the people came to realize this, they will harass us. Or would that be harass us? I think in Britain, harass. Doesn't matter. You get the point. They will harass us until all is revealed. And we would then be derided and hated by everybody. It is therefore necessary, Your Honor the Pope, Holy Father the Pope, it's therefore necessary to take the Bible away and remove it from the hands of the people zealously, but without inciting an uproar. They're going to have to stand in the judgment for that statement. I think that is absolutely amazing. It was sent by a dear friend in France who was keeping his eye on these things.
Do you have the link for that? On here?
The source.
Or it'll be in the notes.
It's a translation from the French by our friend Milk No Sugar in France.
Oh, okay.
So it's not in English.
It's a document stored at the Bibliothèque Nationale de Paris, the National Library of Paris, document 1089, verse 2, volume 2. That would be volume 2, page 641 and 650. Volume 2 of the document stored at the Bibliothèque Nationale de Paris. I'll read the whole thing in French if you'd love to have it. If you don't want to have that, it's even better in France because French is such a beautiful language. Anyway, containing advice given to the cardinals, yes.
That, it reminds me of the story of, is it Tyndale?
Yes.
Who, wanted, because it was against the law, basically, to teach your children in English, to teach the Bible, read the Bible in English.
Isn't that horrible?
And so he taught it to his children, and he wanted them to know the scriptures and know the Bible. And so they put him up for the Inquisition or whatever, and they asked his children if they could, quote scripture, and of course they could because they didn't want to lie. And then they burned him at the stake or something. Somehow he imprisoned.
They killed him.
Somehow.
And then they later exhumed his bones and burned them. And this is religion now. This is now in the name of Jesus. It's despicable. There are very subtle and savage ways of attacking the Bible without being as blatant as this. One classic thing is where you say that Daniel is not written by Daniel. Fortunately, I'm happy to say that people from my college, Christ Church at Oxford, the Regius Professor of Theology in 1860, Dr. Pusey, went on behalf of Daniel to defend him. He said, if you say that Daniel is not written by Daniel, you're making Jesus a liar, which is absolutely true. So the battle is not gone. You don't have to deny the whole Bible to be on the wrong side. If you say that Daniel was written in the 2nd century BC, not by Daniel, but by pseudo-Daniel, you're in big trouble. Watch out. And the church is going to come after you and defend itself against that idea. Anyway, we'll do more of that when we get the book of Daniel. I thought that was absolutely classic.
Yes. It strikes me, though, we have a new strategy to deal with such things, to keep people away from the Bible.
Yeah.
And that is the fact that we revere the Bible, but we still don't read it.
That's right. Yeah, and we didn't, in the CB days, we didn't discuss the Bible at all. We didn't know it enough to discuss it. I feel like if I wrote another chapter or so, I would start with, I was there. Meaning, I was in the Church of England all of my youth until I was 20. I was there. I know what went on. Now, was I not listening? Maybe not as well as I should, but did the clergy tell me any of this that we now know? They didn't know either. And so that's extraordinary. I was there, and now I see things differently. Something's happened. You could say, well, you've gone crazy. It's all. But I was there. I know what I'm talking about. We didn't know anything about Scripture. And when somebody brought the kingdom of God to our attention, that was, in my case, about 1957, I said, my goodness, can you imagine the nations beating their swords into plowshares? Wow! Because my father was involved with the World Council of Churches trying to get the Arabs not to kill the Jews, right? I saw him wear himself out. He died at 69, exhausted, trying to get the Arabs not to kill the Jews. And I saw that vision of the kingdom, and that stays with me. Now, I think at the same time, I accepted some things which were not true because I didn't know any better. We were told, for instance, that the 4th commandment is the Sabbath on Saturday, which it was. So, are we going to keep it? Well, they said to me, Jesus said, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and you won't do the things that I say? Now, Anthony, have you read the 4th commandment? Well, I didn't know where it was. I shuffled through a Bible. I think I had an old King James Bible, and I found that the Sabbath was the fourth commandment. So I'm nodding. In my ignorance. Now, for your children out there, into the vacuum of ignorance will come error. So be aware. Teach your children these truths early on, and they'll never fall for that falsehood, which was that because the fourth commandment says keep the Sabbath, you're bound by that today. Because if you also read Colossians 2:16 and 17, you'd find, this is the key verse in this subject, you'd find that Paul says, be careful now. Do not let anybody tell you what to do, effectively. Don't let anybody judge you. Don't let anybody tell you what to do. Don't let anybody supervise your life in matters of eating and drinking. Don't even let them tell you you can't have a glass of wine, because that would be more righteous than Jesus. Don't go there. And any other thing. You don't have to be a vegetarian to be a Christian and so on. Don't let anybody mess with you in that regard. Or in regard to holy days, new moons, and Sabbath, which is a single shadow. So if you're going to keep the Sabbath religiously, you're going to have to keep the new moons. I don't recommend you do it. You're going to look wacko when your neighbor watches you gazing at the new moon every month. Don't do it. Colossians 2:16 and 17 should put an end. Now, there are 6 attempts to retranslate all that by people who don't know enough Greek to translate anything, because people are determined to keep their traditions against the Bible. So, show your friends Colossians 2:16, 17. These are things that come by every week on the internet. And if they're into not eating pork, that's fine. That's their choice. They don't like pork. Wonderful. Don't like seafood. That's great. But don't base it on Paul, because Paul in Romans 14, verses 14 and 20 says the following. Paul, the apostle. I, Paul, who is a Jew and a Christian, am persuaded in Messiah. Jesus had to persuade him of this. I'm convinced that nothing is unclean of itself unless you think it is. What? I don't think that's Leviticus 11 forbidding you to eat certain foods. If it is, Paul is highly confusing. He's convinced that nothing is unclean of itself unless you think it is. If your conscience bothers you, don't eat it. But don't pretend that Paul is enforcing the food laws. And then in verse 20 he says, all things are clean. Romans 14 verses 14 and 20 should put an end to any doubt about that. You are free to eat reasonable food, but don't let anybody tell you what to do in those areas. Why? Because it's going to put poison into your system. So we stand by our good French friends' axiom here. Milk, no sugar, no cyanide. If you want to get all these doctrines wrong, you're killing yourself. Don't do it. These are not academic things. They are impeding the life of the Spirit in your life if you're going to insist on things that are not biblical. So that's where we take our premise, and if it's all wrong, help us out, show us. Just one other thing, we'll be dealing with what's called full preterism this week. There are people out there saying that everything of the future as you see it has already happened. Jesus came back in 70 AD, the kingdom was established. It's unbelievable. It shows, though, that you can go mad reading the Bible. You can be absolutely insane. That doesn't sound right to you. But those people will argue that with a ferocious persistence that the parousia, the second coming of Jesus, the resurrection of the dead, caught up to meet him in the air, all of that happened in 70 AD. Now, these are not atheists. These are people who work hard at the Bible. So, all the more reason then to instruct your children in the easy truth that there's one single second coming of Jesus in the future, in power and glory, like lightning flashing from east to west, gathers the elect into the kingdom, and then he rewards his servants with positions of executive authority in that kingdom. This is easy stuff. Somebody has something to say.
Dennis Baldwin says, Anthony said, into the vacuum of ignorance will come something. He wants to know what word you use.
Error.
I love that.
Error.
Yes,
Error.
into the
Yes.
vacuum.
I was typing, so I
That's wonderful. Into the vacuum of my ignorance in the Church of England, bless their hearts, Joe Martin would say, I may not have been listening. I don't think the clergy understood this either, but into that vacuum of ignorance of Scripture, not knowing nothing about nothing, right? We couldn't have quoted a verse, couldn't have told you where the Ten Commandments were. We didn't do that in my C.V. Church of England background. Into that vacuum steps the devil with anything that sounds plausible, like, Anthony, why aren't you keeping the fourth commandment? It's in the Ten Commandments. Everybody knows the Ten Commandments. I'm doing it. That was 14 years later. Come eyes open. That was 14 years of my life happily I met my wonderful wife here in that episode in Armstrong. She was only 2 years in the movement. She got out of there much more quickly. But that was 14 years. So now I'm impassioned to prevent people from getting misled by people who say they had vision. And that vision showed that in the 1,000-year reign, that vision showed that Satan will be alone on the earth for 1,000 years. That's what that vision said. That was Ellen G. White of the 23 million Seventh-day Adventists. You can try to help them. That is as false as you can get. To have a millennium with only the devil in charge, come on now, that's just wrong. But it doesn't impede 23 million people from believing it. Or the Jehovah's Witnesses who say that Jesus came back in 1914 invisibly. That's just false. The day-year theory is false. They computed days and years and came up with 1914. And then they said, well, we weren't wrong. We were right, but of course it was an invisible second coming. What are you going to do to help them? Work at it? It's very difficult because they have invested a lot. So into the vacuum of ignorance, I hope I made that clear for my good friend out there, Dennis Baldwin, who I think was taught these solid truths from a young age and has done very well with them. Okay, with that in mind then, we're going back to the book of Daniel.
Friday, the mosque in Fayetteville, if anyone is local.
Yeah.
7 o'clock on Friday.
This coming Friday in the mosque in Fayetteville, there's a gentleman there who is rather qualified. He's a lawyer and he's a journalist, formerly at least of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And he's intrigued with the fact that we don't believe that God is three. And of course, Islam also says Allah is one. So he's intrigued with that, so he's asked me to go and discuss and present our point of view. I'm not an expert on the Quran at all. I will not attempt to tell them what the Quran says. They can tell me that. I do know, however, the Quran says that Jesus didn't die. That's a rather obvious difference, I will put it that way, between the scripture. And they also say God didn't have a son, and they also say that Joseph was not the father of Jesus, but Joseph was not the father. And yet God doesn't have a son. I'm going to try to work at that, say, can we not at least talk a language that's in common? Could we say that the son was procreated? We're not talking about sex, but the son was created in the womb of a mother. Can we say that? Therefore, the Son of God is a biblical phrase. No, they don't like that because that might imply that God had sex with men. I mean, this is childish. We need to get beyond that.
What do they think about the Bible itself? I mean, do they think it's an inspired book of anything?
Not really. Well, they think two things, as with some systems. They're very confused. On the one hand, they say, be kind to the people of the book, and many of the things they teach from the Old Testament are biblical. On the other hand, they say the New Testament is horribly corrupted. It's been horribly corrupted. They won't always tell you where. They have to do that, because the Bible clearly says that Jesus died. They say, no, God would not allow a prophet to die. So, in fact, what God did was to put the face of Jesus on Judas, or if you don't buy that, he put the face of Simon of Cyrene, who carried the cross, on to the one who was crucified. It wasn't really Jesus, it was Simon of Cyrene. I'm not going to try to tangle with them on these things, but simply can we investigate?
Well, I'm just wondering how you can use any biblical references for any sort of argument if they don't even believe that the Bible
That's true.
is
They believe some of
meaningful
it.
to them,
Some of it they do, some they don't, but they talk generally about it being corrupted. However, they do believe that Mary, being the mother of Jesus, did not have Joseph involved in that episode. They believe that. But they then get messy when you say that God had a son. They don't like that. Anyway, I'm going to see if we can sort out friend to friend, in an amicable way. I also am interested in what they view the infidels in terms of the ability for us to live on, because there are texts, rather scary texts, which appear to say, kill all the infidels. They don't believe what the Quran says. They're dead. And there are others that are kinder. So can we investigate that? See what they have to say. We'll try this on Friday in the mosque in Fayetteville. In Fayetteville. Okay. Say something about Peru for us, if you would.
Well,
Carlos.
yeah, Peru, they've been having the second conference in Peru. I'm just getting the photos there.
Okay.
So ABC is out there. David Croak and his wife.
And his sister as well.
And his
Yeah,
sister,
and here are some
Rachel.
photos. So this is an event in a city called Trujillo, which is a coastal town in Peru. So they've been having all week. I posted some of the videos on our YouTube channel, the Abrahamic Movement YouTube. Some of it is in English, obviously most of it in Spanish, but if you have Spanish friends,
Yeah.
they can. So we also have Pastor Alex Davila from Managua there. And yeah, so just pray
That's
for
good.
their safety because they're coming back, I think,
Today?
either today or tomorrow, some of them.
I've been there a week and they've preached a lot of.
This photo I'm showing now is the McLean sisters, we believe, Amber
I don't know the
and
name.
the other lady.
Okay.
They speak Spanish, I think.
So
They
they're
what?
Spanish speakers.
They speak Spanish.
They're
Amber-
very
Amber
good.
McLean.
Yep.
I think the one on the right
Is
is
she one of
Amber.
them or one of the people that went down?
Sorry?
That's not, it kind of looks like that to me.
No, these are
There was a team of 8 who went, so.
This is David Crow, the young gentleman with the white hair, and to his left, which is to the right of the picture, is Alex Davila, who was translating and also preaching. And you can briefly see all the way on the right, that's Edwin, Pastor Edwin, who belonged to a huge Pentecostal movement, 1 million strong,
Yes.
80,000 strong in Peru. And he got out some years ago. He was part of the upper echelon of this group. And then just one last photo here, and this is the guy.
They have quite a lot of people, don't
Yeah,
they? Usually a good sized group.
the attendee to this conference was not as big as when we first went. There were 60 strong or so.
Good.
But Edwin is an evangelist, so he travels a lot. And we're talking all combined, maybe 500 people up to now in different
That's a
towns.
lot of people.
So pray for them.
Good. And we are ourselves proposing to go to Managua this coming Friday?
Next Sunday.
Next
Yeah.
Sunday, in
Week
fact,
from
week from
today.
today, we'll be, God willing, flying over there to Managua, capital of Nicaragua, where Alex Davila, that Carlos just mentioned, is from. He'll be helping us with, I've been invited to speak in 2 different universities, or one I think is a Baptist college, a university, and we'll see what comes. The students can ask anything in the way of basic questions, and that should be fun. All done through translation, and that takes exactly twice the amount of time it does to speak in English, but it's very exhilarating. We do appreciate your prayers for safety, and we don't dare touch the water there because we'll get sick immediately if we do. Got to be very careful what we eat and drink.
So just to add, this is a great opportunity because this is the college there is the equivalent of a Harvard or something,
Oh, is
or
it
an
really?
Oxford in
Okay.
Managua or Central America. So it's a big university. So they're allowing Anthony to speak in the mornings as a normal class,
Okay.
and also they're allowing us to have a room for evenings or nights,
Okay.
and we can talk about pretty much anything. So,
And invite the public.
and invite the
Yeah.
public.
See, Anthony, here's,
Oh.
we want to see a picture of you on a horse.
You won't see me on the horse.
A horse with a flag, we want to
Yeah.
see Anthony on the horse with a flag,
Yeah,
right?
when we went to Egypt, you could see a picture of us on a camel, but that's rather different.
But we're still having church as usual next Sunday.
Yes.
Yes,
Carlos will be doing chapter 3 in this amazing book of Daniel.
You'll be doing
You'll be
chapter
doing
In fact, we'll be here even
Yes.
in the
Yeah,
morning.
we're
That's
leaving
my-
the
Okay, it's me. Okay, it's me on chapter 3.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
you'll be here?
Absolutely.
We'll be here for church.
For
We
church,
live in
we
the-
leave
as
on
usual.
Friday.
So,
We leave Sunday evening and hopefully back the next Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday
Right.
evening.
Anyway,
hopefully
Um,
well.
getting reintroduced to the book of Daniel, haven't worked at it, in detail for some time, but this is an astonishing piece of literature. Daniel was probably 14 or 15 when, as Carlos told you, he was taken captive by the Babylonians, and Nebuchadnezzar being the king at that time, and the last king of Israel was Zedekiah or Jehoiakim. They were taken into captivity, and among them were 3 royal children, 4 actually, 4 royal children, probably 14, 15 years old. They were singled out by the king as being the brightest of the bunch. They were Jews, very intelligent, very sharp, and they came then for training under the PhDs of the Babylonian kingdom, magicians, soothsayers, and others. The whole team of academic experts took charge of the training for 3 years, that was. Very real. These were royal family people. They were royal blood, Daniel and his friends. And they were the cream of the crop. Jews are tending to be very bright in many fields, as you know. So Nebuchadnezzar did a good thing, in a way, taking them into the educational system of Babylon. And you then know that Daniel became a leader. He was number 3 in the whole province of Babylon. Now there's a picture for you to think about, because you are in training as royal family for positions in the kingdom. So the Daniel experience is very much yours, except that he was in a foreign, alien kingdom. But you're living in an alien world. You are green card people. You're not waving the flag for this or that country, primarily. You're waving the flag of the kingdom, so you're in training in a very hostile world. And so there are wonderful parallels, I think, between Daniel and ourselves. I will call on Sarah here and there to give us a date, if we need one. I've got some dates written in, but chronology is not my strength. But I'm insisting, of course, that Daniel was written by Daniel in the 6th century BC. I have to warn you and your children against the lie, the falsehood that was promoted by liberal scholars and should never be promoted, that Daniel was not written by Daniel at all. In about 1800, scholarship, in quotes, false scholarship, said that Daniel was written in the 2nd century BC by pseudo-Daniel. That's a lie. It's a lie unless you don't believe Jesus. So the strong argument against that is that Jesus says in Matthew 24, verse 15, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, the prophet, if you happen to be in Judea, flee to the hills. If that doesn't settle issue for you, nothing will. But the very subtle and treacherous scholarship of so-called scholars said, no, prediction isn't really possible. So all Daniel was doing was reporting the events of the 2nd century BC. This is the theory. Pseudo-Daniel, pretending to be Daniel, wasn't living in the 6th century BC at the time of Nebuchadnezzar at all. It was a pseudo-Daniel who was reporting what he saw going on in the 2nd century, 400 years later. Namely with one called Antiochus Epiphanes, who was a very cruel Syrian king who persecuted Jews. A really Hitlerite figure. He even had women slinging their dead babies around their shoulders and parading up in the streets. I mean, this is horrible cruelty. In the 2nd century BC, about 167 BC, Antiochus Epiphanes. Well, the theory from these scholars, who were much mistaken, was that Daniel, pseudo-Daniel, pretending to live in the 6th century, but not really, in fact was a Daniel, pseudo-Daniel, fake Daniel in the 2nd century BC, who observed the horrible things that were going on by this certainly anti-Christian figure. He's certainly a type of the Antichrist, Antiochus. That undid the whole book of Daniel. Now, I'm happy to tell you that from my own college at Oxford, Christ Church, Oxford, the Regius Professor of Theology in 1860, Dr. Pusey, wrote a whole fat book to fight this erroneous idea, and did it very well. It's just false. If once you do that, you're anti-Christian. And the church has to mark those who do this. And the church will not be blown off track by, well, you're not supposed to judge. That's one of the most misused texts ever. If people are going into serious error, then if we don't judge them, we are going to be judged. That's very important. Now, we don't do this with every, we don't like somebody's hairstyle. We're not talking about that. We're talking about undermining very basic things that the Abrahamic people have always believed, and all evangelicals have. So that's introduction to Daniel, and now we're in the 2nd chapter, and we're looking at 2:1, which has a heading in NASV. I'm using New American Standard Version, good as any, The King's Forgotten Dream. I'll start with 2:1 and ask Sarah on my right to do 2:2. Now, in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him.
Then the king gave orders to call in the magicians, the conjurers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king.
Verse 3.
Okay, they used magic and watched the stars.
Now, verse 3.
Then the king said to them, I had a dream that bothers me.
Yes.
I want to know what it means.
Okay, let's have a look at that first of all. 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. If the theory that Daniel was written in the 2nd century is true, this would be false. Don't throw away your Bible. This is the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. He had a dream, and his spirit was troubled. The word spirit is very much parallel to mind in the Bible. You have the Spirit of God. If you're a Christian, you have the mind of Christ. Close to the word heart, which is very close to the idea of mind and spirit. So his spirit was troubled in his inner man, and he lost sleep over it. Very real. Then the king, Nebuchadnezzar, gave orders to call in the magicians. I'm not an expert on exactly who these people were. This would include the PhDs, the experts in every field, the conjurers, sorcerers, and the Chaldeans. What have you got in the marginal reference there for the Chaldeans? Sarah, have you got some comment on Chaldeans?
Chaldeans, not all the Babylonians,
Right.
as in 1 verse 4, but a class of wise men priests.
Got it. The clergy, shall we say. They called in the experts, the clergy, all the PhDs, the theologians and the clergy, to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king. To stand before the king is a biblical phrase for being in the service of the king. I suppose I should mention that my own grandfather was in the service of the king. I have sort of a certain sympathy for this situation, because Granddad was the Regent Professor of Medicine at Oxford. So he was in the service of the king. We were taught to respect the king, and you're supposed to work hard for the king. And here is what happened. They stood in the service of the king, and the king said to them in verse 4, let's go on to verse 4. Who's got 4?
Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic.
Yes.
O king, live forever. Tell the dream to your servants, and we will declare the interpretation.
Yes.
The king replied to the Chaldeans, "The command from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you will be torn limb from limb, and your houses will be made a rubbish heap."
6.
But if you tell me what I dreamed and what the dream means, I will give you many wonderful gifts and honors. Just tell me the dream and what it means.
And they answered the second time and said, "Let the king tell the dream to his servants, and we will declare the interpretation."
The king answered and said, I know for certain that you are bargaining for time, inasmuch as you have seen that the command from me is firm.
You know that you will be punished if you don't tell me about my dream. So you have all agreed to lie to me. If you are hoping for more time so that I will forget what I want you to do, now tell me the dream. If you can't tell me the dream, I will know that you can tell me what it really means.
Okay. Verse 10.
The Chaldeans answered the king and said, There is not a man on earth who could declare the matter for the king, inasmuch as no great king or ruler has ever asked anything like this of any magician, conjurer, or Chaldean.
Moreover, the thing which the king demands is difficult, and there is no one else who could declare it to the king except God's, whose dwelling place is not with mortal flesh.
Okay, let's stop right there. What impression do you get of society? It's almost as cruel as some of the election talk we witness in America, isn't it? You're a bad guy, you're a liar, I'm not telling you. It's very fierce. What struck me as amazing was verse 5 here. You'll be torn limb from limb, and your houses will be made a rubbish heap. Isn't that nice?
So why do they want to even venture it?
Exactly. It shows a brutal, very non-civil approach to dialogue. And of course, it is a huge thing to ask somebody to remember a dream you've forgotten. He genuinely had forgotten it, apparently. So they're being asked to reproduce the dream. And if they do, they'll be rewarded. And if you serve the King Messiah, you are going to be rewarded. The parallels are clear. Not this brutal king, but the Messiah who is a compassionate king. So what happens, of course, is quite obvious. The king simply says, you're stalling. I know you liars, you're just stalling.
Bargaining for time.
Bargaining for time, you're stalling. You've seen that the command from me is firm. I mean what I say. These were dictators, they were autocrats of the worst type. I'll burn your house down if you don't tell me. Awful world to live in. However, God is equal to this challenge, using his servants. So down then in verse 12, because of this, the king became indignant and very furious. He went into a demonic rage, in fact, and gave orders to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. Watch out for the rage, right? If you have a tendency towards rage, watch out. I've met somebody who said to me that when he talks to me about the existence of the devil, he said this, or demons, he says, Anthony, I feel when I talk to you about the demons or the devil, I feel a rage coming up within me. watch out. Where's that coming from? So let's not be in a rage, because it could be demonic big time, I suppose. Okay, let's move on to where should
Can
we
I
go?
just say that today's version of verse 5, I think it is, being torn limb from limb,
Yeah.
is of course abortion.
Good point.
That's true.
Barbara makes a connection.
That's
If you
the
could
way it's
watch
done.
that. Yeah.
That's the way it's done.
Abortion, 1,600 times every morning, is it, in America? Limbs are being pulled out of unborn babies. That's atrocious. The wrath of God falls upon that course. That's another subject, but it is reminiscent of it. Okay, where are we? Verse 12.
13.
13?
Yeah.
Who's got 13? Okay, please.
So the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they looked for Daniel and his friends to kill them.
Isn't that nice? You are going to be persecuted as a Christian, right? Paul said we are sheep for the slaughter. You are. Are you willing to that to go through that sort of preparation? Yes, you have to. We're going to kill you. We don't like what you say. That's the devil speaking. So they looked for Daniel and his friends, who were who? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These were their Babylonian names. Before that, they were something else. They changed their names in Babylon. Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael. Yes, exactly. Those are their Hebrew names. And suddenly they've got Babylonian names, which is fine. They accepted that. They happen then to be Babylonian god names and other things like that. That's who they are. They're going to get killed. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain. And
Doesn't
they
he
are.
have some soldiers or somebody do his dirty work? I mean, he asks these young men, these teenagers, to kill all these people.
No, they were going to get.
They were going to get killed.
This king,
There's an
the decree
asking-
went forth, the wise men should be slain, and they looked for Daniel and his friends to kill them.
Right, to get killed.
To get killed.
Daniel?
No, yes,
They
absolutely.
were going to get killed here.
Yes.
To kill them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Which verse is this
In
again?
14, the
Yes.
captain, the king's bodyguard, is going forth to slay the wise men,
Absolutely.
which would include Daniel
So they're including Daniel in with the conjurers and sorcerers?
and the wise men, yeah, in 14.
And anybody who cannot deal with the dream is going to get killed. And that's what it says in 13. So they looked for Daniel and his friends to kill them, because they were included in the wise people. They were the PhDs, they joined.
About it.
Yeah, well, they hadn't heard the dream yet, but of course we know how the story goes on. So at this point then, the four Jews are included in the experts who are supposed to know, and they'll get killed along with all of the other PhDs and clergy and theologians who are unable to do what the king says. Verse 14, where's that?
Arioch
Yes.
was the commander of the king's guard,
Mm-hmm.
who was going to kill the wise men of Babylon.
Yes.
But Daniel talked to him.
Yes.
Daniel spoke politely to Arioch
Wow.
and said,
And said, 15.
He said to Arioch, the king's commander, "For what reason is the decree from the king so urgent?"
Mm-hmm.
Then Arioch informed Daniel about the matter.
Mm-hmm.
So Daniel went in and requested of the king that he would give him time in order that he might declare the interpretation to the king.
Good. All right, 17.
Then Daniel went home and told his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah what had happened.
Yes. So that they might request compassion from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his friends would not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon.
Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven.
Okay, we're coming to the really central point of the whole thing here. I like this. So you can make requests of God, as Daniel did. He requested compassion from God to intervene. I see that. Went to his home, informed his friends. I like the way Daniel intervened here. He went and spoke to the appropriate person, see if we cannot get this worked out somehow. And verse 18, then, that they might request compassion from the God of heaven, who is the one God of unitary, monotheistic, Israelitish religion. That's the phrase you're going to use with all your friends. You're going to say to them, who is the God of the Bible? Is it a Trinitarian God, or is it the unitary, monotheistic God of Daniel, God of Moses, God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. This conversation hasn't started yet. If you can get Megan Kelly onto this, I'm delighted to go and argue with her, because she's a lawyer, and she will see the point of what we're saying here. Okay, the mystery was revealed. Now, mystery doesn't mean a mystification that nobody can ever understand ever. It's not a riddle that cannot be unlocked by anybody. Mystery is always in the Bible. Jesus used it that way. God's plan, which is somewhat secret until you understand it, that's true. But it's not a mystification that's beyond the wit of anybody to know. This mystery, then, is
What's another
secret.
word for that?
Mysterion in Greek, and it's the Hebrew word is raz, R-A-Z, and so it's obviously a secret in the sense that it has to be revealed, but it's not incomprehensible. Like people talk
Like
about
a
the mystery.
secret thing,
Secret.
rather than
Right.
mystery.
Yes.
Because to us, mystery means
Right.
something that has never been figured out.
That's right.
Puzzle,
Whereas
yeah,
an
an
Not an
enigma,
enigma- not
yeah,
an
a
enigma.
secret could just be something that's
Right.
not well known, or not known out there, but
And
it's not.
a divine secret, certainly. It's God's plan that we're reading here, and we're part of it just as much as these people
I
were.
like the biblical Unitarian translation,
Yes.
REV,
Yes, what is that?
revised.
Yeah. Sacred secret.
Yeah, sacred secret.
It's all right.
Sacred secrets.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Most,
And Paul uses that too, and Jesus does. It's the sacred secret about the kingdom, which has to be revealed. God's plan, hidden until revealed. That's right. Okay, so the mystery was revealed to Daniel. Now we're getting to the key issue here. In a night vision, it's interesting, isn't it? You're sleeping, and you're seeing in a dream perhaps, or a vision when you're awake. It doesn't say exactly, but you're seeing world history unfold before you during the night hours.
Which
Then
tells you
Daniel
God didn't,
testified.
God didn't mess around either. He told him that night.
He did, right away. Good point. So then Daniel blessed the God. That's thanked the God. Blessed him, thanked him. When you bless the food, you're thanking God for the food. You're not necessarily blessing the food to get the poisons out of it. And that's nice too, but that's not what is meant. When Jesus blessed the food, he's blessing God. That would be the Hebraic way of thinking, for good things. So it was revealed, and Daniel then thanked the Lord God of heaven, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Verse 20, who is that?
praise God's name
Yes.
forever and ever. Power and wisdom belong to Him.
Good. Thanks, Lord.
It
Good.
is he who changes the times and epochs. He removes kings and establishes kings.
Yes,
He gives wisdom to wise men and knowledge to men of understanding.
got it.
It is He who reveals the profound and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness,
Yeah.
and the light dwells with Him.
Marvelous.
I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors, for you have given me wisdom and strength. You have told me what we asked of you and revealed to us what the king demanded.
Yeah. Okay, let's stop right there. All of this language is reflected in Jesus' language about make known. Jesus, I'll remind you without turning to all these verses, to you have been made known the secrets of the kingdom. This is the language of Jesus, right? Jesus was deeply imbued with the language of Daniel. So this make known mystery language is reflected in the parables of Jesus. To you, Christians, has been made known, Jesus said, the mystery, the unfolding plan, the sacred secret, if you like, of God's kingdom. Just to comment on the REV, sacred secret is fine as long as you don't then say that only Paul understood it. That is a catastrophic mistake. The gospel was preached to Jesus first. It's not a sacred secret only Paul understood. That is very false, and you'll come across that. That's from the Way International. That's not right. So it's God's plan, sacred secret, but certainly Jesus understood it, and so did Daniel years before. Okay, you've made known the king's affair, the king's matter, like that, don't you? The king's word, matter, thing. Okay, 24. Therefore Daniel went into Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy all the wise men of Babylon.
Nice. Can we back up?
Yes, please.
Just,
Go ahead.
just verse 21. 'cause
Yeah.
I think Tom quoted this to me this week
Yes.
regarding our elections.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Good.
That God changes the times
Yes.
and the eras, and He removes kings and establishes kings.
I'm glad you took us to that.
That's kind
Yes.
of appropriate now
It is.
nowadays when it's time to vote for.
Well, why vote if God is the one behind it?
Well,
Well, because we're told to vote, and that's part of
We're
obedience.
told to vote.
Yes.
Who tells it?
Well, the state tells
That
you.
tells you to vote?
Not,
No, we're not commanded to vote by
Well,
the
the state certainly allows you.
It's a choice,
given the
yeah.
opportunity.
It's a choice,
In
but you.
Australia, you are mandatory.
In some countries, you are actually commanded.
In
In
America.
Right, in America,
Other places.
you're not commanded to vote, but people do it. However, God can supervise all that. How exactly He works all of that is completely unknown. But He certainly is in control. I get that. And not only that, I love the thing about the light dwelling with Him. You see that in 2:22? It is God who reveals the profound and hidden things, this mystery. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with Him. The darkness would be the darkness of misunderstanding. The light dwells with God. That's John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word was with God. Light dwells with God. Word dwells with God. That's what God thinks about all the time, light and Word. So that's exactly parallel to John 1:1. The light dwells with God. And of course we know that that light was revealed supremely in Jesus the Son. The human Jesus the Son is a wonderful reflection of wisdom and light and Word. Jesus said that. I am the light of the world. He also said, you are the light of the world. And it dwells first of all with God. I love that. It's beautiful. To you, O God of my fathers, the unitary monotheistic God of Israel, I give thanks and praise. Isn't that wonderful? A lot in the Gospels, in the writings of Paul, about thanking and praising God constantly. Like that hymn we just sang mentioned that. So we should be very grateful for being alive, should we not? Especially I think, in the very fortunate part of the world we have to live. We have, should we say, we are filthy rich compared with a lot of other people. That's not for nothing that we've done. We should be very grateful to having life and food in this wonderful part of the world. Okay, what else we got? You've made known to me, there's that kingdom language, what we requested of you, that's prayer and requests, very typical. You've made known the king's affair. Therefore, what about that? 24. Who is that? Okay.
Vicky was here.
Please, Vicky, if she'd like to read.
Okay. Therefore Daniel went into Arioch,
Mhm.
whom the king had appointed to destroy
Yes.
the wise men of Babylon.
Mhm.
He went and spoke to him as follows. Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me into the king's presence, and I will declare the interpretation to the king.
Isn't that wonderful boldness? Okay, let's go on. Another one, Barbara.
Then Arioch hurriedly brought Daniel into the king's presence and spoke to him as follows. I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can make the interpretation known to the king.
Wow, 26.
The king said to Daniel, also known as Belteshazzar,
Mhm.
is this true? Can you tell me what my dream was and what it means?
Daniel answered before the king and said, as for the mystery about which the king has inquired, neither wise men, conjurers, magicians, or diviners are able to declare it to the king.
However, there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and He has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will take place in the latter days. This was your dream and the visions in your mind while on your bed.
Okay, let's pause right there because that's such a significant verse.
Mm-hmm.
Very confident. Daniel knew that God had been working with him and he could handle this problem. And he says, as the God in heaven, the one God of unitary monotheism, who reveals secrets, and he's made known to King Nebuchadnezzar, that's going to be via Daniel, what will take place in the Acharit HaYamim. That means the last phase of the days of the world as we now know it. The last phase, at the end. So you then encourage your friends to check that Acharit HaYamim. I'll turn to only one as a reference. That would be in Isaiah chapter 2. So we get ourselves grounded in the right chronology here. Isaiah chapter 2. And you have that same Acharit HaYamim, the last phase of the days, in fact. As far as the eye can see, the last of the days, and you have that in Daniel, in Isaiah 2. The word which Yeshayahu, the son of Amos, saw in a vision concerning Judah and Jerusalem. Now it will come about, this is Isaiah 2:2, that in the Acharit HaYamim, in those final days, as far as the eye can see, this is what's going to happen. The mountain of the house of Yahweh will be established as the chief of the mountains and will be raised above the hills. And all the nations will stream to it. Very odd that they're streaming upwards, right? We don't normally stream upwards, do you? So it's very significant. They're going up to the house of the mountain of Jerusalem there, because many peoples will come and say, let's go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, the unitary monotheistic God of Israel and of Jesus, that he may teach us concerning his ways. That we may walk, that's the Christian living word, in his paths. For the Torah will go forth from Zion, and that's not heaven, it's not in the clouds. Everybody knew where Zion was. The throne of England is not in Moscow, I would add. We should know that. And the words of the Lord from Yerushalayim, from Jerusalem. And he will judge among the nations. He will supervise, no, they will judge, take charge, tell you what to do. He'll supervise between the nations and will render decisions for many peoples. And they, the peoples, will hammer their swords into plowshares and their spears into farm instruments. Nations will not lift up sword against nation, and never, ever, ever, ever again will they learn war. In my book I said something about Sandhurst, that's where they train the army, will be a curio museum. What's the equivalent in America? West Point, right? They'll go and inspect West Point. Wow, goodness, we used to train people to kill. Isn't that awful? We aren't there yet. So the preterism, the full preterism that's on the internet right now, telling us all this happened in 70 AD, is foolishness. It's plainly and absolutely wrong. If words have any meaning at all, this is clear. Let's argue about this, let's not. There's nothing, quote, spiritual or figurative. Because in our crooked minds, when we don't like to believe what we read, we say, it's spiritual, it's figurative, it's all metaphors. Then it's meaningless. What does this mean then, if it doesn't mean what it says? So this is the Acharit HaYamim. That hasn't happened yet. It will happen then at the same time as Daniel is talking about. The Acharit HaYamim, the kingdom of God, in other words. Very easy. So you use that text in Isaiah 2 a lot, right? It's very, very clear. Jehovah's Witnesses understand that to a point, except that they say it happened in 1914, and it obviously didn't. Okay.
So Bob K. said, and I don't know where,
Yes.
because I just am not looking at how long
Yes.
ago he wrote this, Job 12:22.
Okay, what does that say? Please read that for
It's
us.
over there. Let's see.
You could?
Oh, okay, that's cool. It says, this is Job 12:22.
Yes.
He reveals mysteries from the darkness and brings the deep darkness into light.
Yes.
He makes the nations great, then destroys them.
Wonderful.
He enlarges the nations, then leads them away.
Excellent parallel. Write that in your margin. That's wonderful. Job 12, was
Job
it?
12:22 and
Right.
23.
One of the Job speakers there, either Job or one of his three friends, makes a very profound remark. Sounds as though Daniel is quoting from that too. It's wonderful. Okay, Job
22 and
12:22.
23.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then 24 says, he deprives of intelligence the chiefs of the earth's people.
Yes.
I can think
Driven them
I
mad.
can think of several chiefs, but and makes them wander in a pathless waste.
Yes. You
They
mean the ones?
grope in darkness with no light. He makes them stagger like a drunken man.
Okay. You mean the ones who lie about
Doesn't
lying?
describe
We think
our
of some of
leaders
those.
these days.
Yes. Okay. All right. So that is what is going on here in the Acharit HaYamim. He's made known what will take place. Which is the verse with the Acharit HaYamim? I've lost it.
28.
28? Okay, 28th verse. Made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will take place in the final stage of the days. This was your dream and the visions in your mind while on your bed. We've nailed it. Now verse 29, who has that?
The king, as you were lying there on your bed, he began thinking about what might happen in the future.
Yes.
God can tell people about secret things. He has shown you what will happen in the future.
Good.
But as for me, this mystery has not been revealed to me for any wisdom residing in me more than in any other living man, but for the purpose of making the interpretation known to the king, and that you may understand the thoughts of your mind.
Okay, I love that. That's wonderful stuff. As for your king, while on your bed, your thoughts turn to what would take place after this. That's parallel to Acharit HaYamim. After this. Not the afterlife when you die. See, that has replaced all of this in popular theology. Nothing to do with what happens when you die. But after this in history, the end times, if you like, the Acharit HaYamim is parallel to the what will take place after this, simply the same thing as the end time days. And I'm not getting this because I'm smarter than anybody else. I like that very much, by the way. Daniel's very modest here. He's getting because God used him, and God can do that. You with it? God can use whoever he likes to say whatever God wants to say. Doesn't mean that Daniel was something. Now, he had natural talents, obviously. He was distinguished as a student and so on. But it doesn't make him some great thing. I love that. And he says that right here.
I think he was saying that too, so that the king wouldn't put all these innocent people to death.
Yes, I'm sure. He was.
Like, look, king, nobody could have understood this.
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah.
Not any of these people,
Good point.
not even me,
Right.
from some great wisdom of my own,
That's right.
could have understood this. This came
Good
from
point.
God only.
So would you say he's a peacemaker here, isn't he?
Absolutely.
He's doing some wonderful peacemaking.
Very wise.
These brutal kings who are going to burn his house and tear him limb from limb. And here's this, and this is you now. Read yourself into it. You are the peacemakers by saying, calm down, folks. You know, let's get this straight. Let's talk about this in a rational, civil manner. This is you following the model of Daniel. Okay, so that was verse 30, that you may understand the thoughts of your man. Understanding is everything. Please don't ever say, I don't want doctrine, I want Christian living. That's a falsehood. Don't say it. Everything you teach is doctrine. The devil loves this. Oh, we don't argue about doctrine. That's divisive. You bet it is. Oh, we just want Christian living. No, they go together. We need to do both. So that's a huge falsehood that's put out that these doctrines about God, these are divisive. We don't want to do that, do we? No, that's not right. Everybody in the world believes in being good. If you want to do ethics and being nice and good, Mahatma Gandhi did that extremely well. My Mother Teresa does it very, very well. A lot of very good people in every denomination. A lot of Mormons are very good. A lot of atheists are very good people. They believe in solid marriages. But they don't understand the great truth. So that's the devil's propaganda. Okay, and this information everybody should be learning, I think. Verse 31. Who's got that?
Can you first comment on
Yeah. Yeah. What's
You
that?
wanna go?
No, I'm supposed to read next. What?
Are you going to read it
sorry.
first? What have you got? now?
Can you comment on this commentary on that phrase, the last days?
Yes,
The Cambridge Bible
yes.
says that by the prophets, the expression is often specialized in an eschatological sense.
Yes,
in the
future
end of the
sense.
day.
Awful word, eschatology, future sense. Yes,
As in Hosea 3, Ezekiel 38,
Absolutely.
and so on.
yes.
Where it means,
Mhm.
as it means in Isaiah 2:2,
Yes.
the verse you read,
Mhm.
the final age
Yep.
of the world's history
Yep.
following the establishment of the kingdom of God.
No, not following, that's wrong. Not following the establishment. Introducing is backwards.
Yeah.
Is backwards. The Ahari is not
Why-
following.
Why do they say that?
Well, because they're very confused in this area. Obviously, the nations have not beaten their swords into plowshares, so if all of that Acharit follows the establishment of the kingdom of God, that would be our millennialism. That's the thing we're fighting. The kingdom of God did not begin in 70 AD, and it did not begin in 1914,
And it's not here now.
and it's not here now.
So is that the assumption in this commentary?
Yes,
That
they have to be.
millennials?
Is that the Cambridge Bible for Schools and Commentaries?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say that's Driver from my own college. He's wrong there. That's completely wrong. I can bring you Pusey from 1860, much, much better. So that, I'm glad you
Just
mentioned
another
Yeah.
question. So, what follows in the rest of this book,
that.
which is a battlefield, as Pooh
Yes,
says,
yes, it is.
says it.
It is.
I
Yes.
shared that excellent quote you provided last Sunday.
Yeah.
So, what follows,
Yeah.
because the commentaries, the commentaries are very misleading.
They
I
are.
just read the one.
On this
right?
point, can be
So
better.
when we read Bible studies and we study this book,
Yeah.
I'm afraid that most of the commentary out there doesn't help us because it
Depends which one you're doing. Depends which one you're doing.
So, but my question is, the rest of the book
Yeah.
deals with this dream, right, or
Yes,
dreams,
absolutely.
and deals with the things pertaining to the
Absolutely.
dream
Unpacked.
that have to do with the end of the
End of
age.
the age.
Is that
Oh,
correct to say?
absolutely. The rest of the book is good teaching. You start with the fundamental idea there's going to be a kingdom of God, and then you say, now let's unpack this. What you do in all teaching, isn't it? I'm going to talk to you today about X. Now let me unpack it point by point.
The
This
reason
is
I
the
ask
book
that is
works.
because a lot of the stuff out there
Yeah.
in terms of Bible studies and commentaries chop it up.
Yeah.
Like They say, oh, this chapter in Daniel deals with this,
Yes.
and this chapter deals with this event.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
there's some truth in that. They do have different topics, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, but they're all an unpacking of the central idea that we're given.
Let me be more clear.
Right.
For example, they say the events in, going ahead a bit here,
Mhm.
the events in Daniel 7
Yep.
pertain to another event or another set of characters,
Mhm.
and events in chapter 9 and 10 pertain to another set of events
In history.
in history,
Right.
they say. So that's wrong.
Well, that's got to be wrong. Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 are parallels. They're all about the 4 kingdoms that's going to be superseded by the 5th kingdom. And there's some argument about which that 4th kingdom is. I'll mention that, we'll get to it.
Yeah, well,
But clearly, 7 further unpacks chapter 2. Okay, we got that then. You, O king. Now it gets to the specifics of what this vision's about. Who's got 31? Michelle's turn. Okay.
You, O king, were looking, and behold, there was a single great statue.
Mhm.
That statue, which was large and of extraordinary splendor, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was awesome.
Yes, 32.
The head of the statue was made of fine gold, its chest and arms were of silver, its belly and thighs were of bronze.
Mhm. And its legs were of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly clay.
You continued looking until a stone was cut out without hands, and it struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and crushed them.
Mhm.
35.
35.
then the iron, the clay, the bronze, silver, and the gold broke to pieces all at the same time.
Mhm.
And all the pieces became like chaff on a threshing floor
Yes.
in the summertime. The
Yes.
wind blew them away, and there was nothing left. No one could tell that a statue had ever even been there.
Yeah.
Then the rock that hit the statue
Mhm.
became a very large mountain
Yes.
and filled up the whole earth.
Okay, let's stop right there. Did that recall Isaiah 2 about the mountain of the Lord will be established? And here a kingdom is a mountain. That's well known. A kingdom is symbolized by a mountain sometimes. So that mountain points to the kingdom which fills the whole earth. This is the coming of the kingdom of God, which is future for us, clearly. You simply say to your friends, take the Gospel of Mark, show me one single verse in the Gospel of Mark which talks about a presence of the kingdom. Now, there are a few verses which talk about the presence of the kingdom now. They're very tiny amount and they're important. The key one would be in Colossians 1:13, which says that we have been transferred into the kingdom. You have. You have been translated, past tense, into the kingdom of God. That's to say, the training, preparation part of it in view of the future kingdom. But you have to tell your friends that the kingdom of God is primarily, firstly, predominantly, that future thing that begins at the second coming. Go through the Gospel of Mark, you will find nothing about the presence of the kingdom anywhere, but Jesus in the Gospel of Mark introduces, and this is Vicky's point, you make your fundamental point, then you unpack it. How does Jesus begin his ministry? God's kingdom is coming, repent and believe in the gospel of the kingdom. You will not find your friends starting there. There's an underlying what we call dispensationalism that really cripples the system. They've been taught that you always start with the death of Jesus. That's not entirely wrong, but what they don't do is to tell you that Jesus preached the gospel. Ask your friends what the gospel is. Very unlikely that they will say it's the gospel of the kingdom. But it is. So underlying then that system out here is a very pernicious idea that the kingdom is not part of the gospel. Oh, well, you can do the kingdom as eschatology and all that. No, it's part of the gospel. So Vicky's point about you make your central statement, you all do it and you present, at your workplace, you make your central statement, which is Jesus came into Galilee, Mark 1:14 and 15, comes into Galilee saying, announcing God's gospel. God's gospel. Oh, you can't get any higher than that. And saying, here's the script, the kingdom of God is coming. Repent and believe the gospel. Got it? Not even believe me. He means that too, because you can't believe someone without believing their words. That's another fiction, by the way. Oh, I just accept Jesus. I don't accept his words. That's a lie. In order to accept Jesus, you have to accept his word. That should be evident. So that's the unpacking then in the Gospel of Mark, and the future kingdom is there everywhere. Tell them that in Mark 15:45, Joseph of Arimathea was still waiting for the kingdom. Isn't that beautiful? After the death and resurrection of Jesus, that's Mark 15:45, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple, he's still waiting for the kingdom. Had he missed it? No, it hadn't come, properly speaking. My friend Etienne in France will like this. Proprement dit, properly speaking, the kingdom hadn't come. In a different sense, the spirit of the kingdom is present, right? The ethics of the kingdom had better be evident among us. But the kingdom, proprement dit, properly speaking, has not yet come. You miss that, you've missed the whole Bible. You really have. And we didn't get this clear in the Church of England, we wouldn't have discussed any of that. So we make the point then firmly that the God of heaven, now that's the kingdom of heaven, by the way, you know that. The kingdom of heaven is exactly the same as the kingdom of God, no difference. How can you prove that? You take one saying where it says, let the little children come, of such is the kingdom of heaven. Only Matthew uses that phrase. He also uses the phrase kingdom of God 4 times. But he said, let the children come, of such is the kingdom of heaven. You go to the parallel statement in Mark and Luke, allow the little children to come to me, of such is the kingdom of God. It's the same thing. There's a system out there which says the kingdom of heaven is different from the kingdom of God. That is mass chaos. Fundamentally and systematically false. You will never understand the Bible if that's your view. It's easy to learn that, much easier. So the kingdom of God is the thing that's coming. That's why you're praying then, thy kingdom come. You don't pray for something to come that's already fully here. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't say your kingdom spread. You could argue that you are influencing people in favor of the kingdom in that sense, but that's not primarily what it means. Your kingdom spread. No, that's not right. Your kingdom come. If we had time another week, we can read you from the Jewish prayers of that time, the 18 prayers of the synagogue. Exactly the same stuff. They're praying, oh God, please send the kingdom in my days. Please let Jerusalem be freed from all the enemies. It's a very Jewish story. Well, that's a shock. Jesus was a Jew. Do we realize that? Or we turn him into a Gentile. Let's not do that. It's distorted. Okay, that's that part of it. I get too excited about this stuff. I lose my place. 31. You okay? 32 now? 36, sorry. Okay, what about these, the kingdom? You've got this memorized. What was the head made of? Gold. This was a colossal statue. Very impressive, right? Hugely impressive. Marvelous image. Think about imagery, by the way, and the paganism of worshipping images. Head of gold, breasts and arms were silver. You see that the metals are declining in value, right? They're getting worse. From gold to silver. Belly and thighs are bronze. Legs of iron. Feet partly of iron, partly clay. That's a poor mixture, isn't it? Rather feeble. Iron and clay don't mix well at the end there. And then, significantly, a stone comes out of a mountain and crashes onto the feet, which are very brittle and unstable, and the whole thing collapses. That surely suggests that all of those 4 kingdoms are in some sense always there, right? Literally the kingdom of Babylon has stopped, that's true. Literally the kingdom of Medo-Persia stopped in history. Literally the kingdom of Greece. Here's how the children remember this. Later on we're going to learn about the goat, which was Greece, and the king who was prominent there was Alexander the Great. GGG, got it? I hope the children are hearing this. Greece, goat, and Alexander the Great, the 3rd kingdom. Now the 4th kingdom was always taken to be Rome, and with some reason, because Rome did come along after the Greek kingdom, that's true. However, modern commentators, I think, are doing probably a bit better, without being dogmatic necessarily, but I think the 4th kingdom is not Rome, probably. The reason for that would be, as some have pointed out, that these kingdoms are all based on Babylon. The headquarters of Nebuchadnezzar was Babylon. The headquarters of the 2nd kingdom, Medo-Persia, was Babylon. The headquarters where Alexander the Great set his kingdom up was Babylon. Rome is a Western thing. It's a different scene. Now, I could still be right. Certainly it's a very bad kingdom, but people tend to identify the bad guy with the kingdom they don't like, right? So in our day, we were taken to Germany to see Strauss, the prime minister of the Roman kingdom that was going to be revived. That failed, right?
You're hopping around, I'm sorry.
Hopping around?
You're hopping around a little bit.
Okay.
Are you talking about this kingdom, about this statue, or are you talking about future?
I'm talking about this.
Statues
We're
and
doing this chapter 2.
Okay, so I'd like to actually write down in the margins what these are.
Absolutely.
So the gold.
Well, we're getting to it. We haven't actually got to it. I'm anticipating.
All right.
But in fact, we'll go right there. We're talking about chapter 2.
36.
And we're talking about the whole of the 4 kingdoms. And 36 Here's the interpretation. Let's do that, and we'll confirm what I already gave you. Get it twice this way. You king, who's he talking to? Nebuchadnezzar. You're a king of kings, and so is Jesus, by the way. To whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power, the strength, this is 37, and the glory. And whenever the sons of men, human beings, please note, son of man is human being, that's what Jesus is. The children of men, human beings dwell. All the animals in the fields, all the birds of the sky. God has given all of these into your hand, Nebuchadnezzar, caused you to rule over them all. You are the head of gold. Clear, right? That's who he is. In your margin, would you please write Jeremiah 27:5 and turn over to that one because it really reflects nicely what was said here. Jeremiah 27:5. Jeremiah 27 and verse 5 has this to say. Sarah, could you read that for me? You got it handy? Jeremiah 27:5 is a marvelously all-encompassing statement.
I have made the earth, the men and the beasts which are on the face of the earth by my great power and by my outstretched arm. And I will give it to the one who is pleasing in my sight.
Isn't that wonderful? Well, God had chosen to give this huge empire, taken to be the whole world in a sense. The Middle East here is taken as the whole world. I know it's not the whole world, but it's the center of the world. And he gave it, allowed, as Tom was saying earlier, the governments are allowed and permitted by God, and sometimes he sets up the basis of people. Doesn't mean he always puts good people in charge, but at least God is in charge of all that. You are this head
If
of
you
God.
continue to 27:6,
27?
right after what you just read.
Yes.
For I have given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon.
Got it.
My servant.
That's
And
wonderful.
all the animals.
Oh, that's right. Which verse is that?
Jeremiah
And Jeremiah
27.
27.
Oh, yes.
She read 5, but
Yes.
6.
What does 6 say?
Okay, well, 5 says, I've made the
Yes.
earth and the man and the beast are on the face of
Yes.
the earth by my arm, and I will give it to the one who's pleasing in my sight.
Yes.
Now I've given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon.
Thank you.
There are presumably these lands that he just
Absolutely.
mentioned earlier.
Right.
And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, my servant,
Yeah.
and I have given him also the wild animals of the field to serve him.
Excellent. I'm glad you read that because that makes our point exactly. That there is a sense in which this Babylonian kingdom is worldwide, is it not? And God gave it into the hands of good and bad people. Okay, so he's the head of gold. That's quite clear. Head of gold. Very impressive, actually. What happens then after the head of gold?
39.
39.
After you there will arise another kingdom inferior to you, then another third kingdom of bronze, which will rule over all the earth.
Okay, the second kingdom I'm anticipating here is going to be Medo-Persia. And the third kingdom is going to be Greece. I'm anticipating because you have to have that structure to make sense of the book. The second kingdom is not named here, but it is later named as the Medo-Persian kingdom. And the third kingdom is Greece, Alexander the Great with a G, Greece, and he's seen in a subsequent vision to be a goat in another image, unpacking this image.
Excuse
So-
me, so
yes.
Babylon is the first?
Babylon is the first. Absolutely. Babylon is the first, and Nebuchadnezzar represents Babylon. The king represents the kingdom. That's a very Hebraic way of thinking. He is the kingdom, if you like. He represents the kingdom. Head of gold. Then comes another one unnamed here at this point, but they're going to be named in chapter 7, unpacking this information nicely. Okay, so that's that one. Where have we got to now?
Then there will be a fourth kingdom.
Yes.
That kingdom will be
Yes.
strong like iron, just as iron breaks things and smashes them
Yes.
to pieces. That fourth kingdom will break all the other kingdoms and smash them to pieces.
Yes.
41.
41.
In that you saw
The feet.
the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron.
Mhm.
It will be a divided kingdom,
Yes.
but it will have in it the toughness of iron, inasmuch as you saw the iron mixed with common clay.
Yes. 42.
As the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of pottery, so some of the kingdom will be strong, and part of it will be brittle.
Mhm.
This mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances
Yeah.
with each other through intermarriage. But this will not succeed, just as iron and clay do not mix.
Now, they're poised for the great moment. Got 4 kingdoms, right? Let's repeat them. One has to try to take this in point by point. The gold is Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylon kingdom. Later on, we're going to see Medo-Persia as the second. And the third one is certainly Greece. That's Alexander the Great, the goat, and Greece. The 4th kingdom is a matter of some dispute. Traditionally, this was taken to be Rome, and historically, certainly, you could say the Roman kingdom. However, as others have pointed out, and increasingly in our time, I actually think we're improving in our understanding of prophecy, the 4th kingdom is rather a different geographical area. All of those first 3 kingdoms are centered on Babylon. That's a Western Asian thing. Rome is not primarily a Western Asian thing. Yes, it's true that in 116 Rome did venture into the Euphrates for a very short time, but the Roman Empire, which is huge, is more of a Western European thing. Got it? There is a difference. I'm not insisting on this, but it's an interesting idea. Jim Madison, in his book, did it the way I'm suggesting. So possibly then that 4th kingdom is a final bad kingdom, and it is divided at the end into 2 legs. You see that, right? So think of a twosomeness about that 4th kingdom, and consider the possibility that Asia, the Western Asian scene, would possibly be the final kingdom too. It doesn't matter. Rome was very bad, but Rome is not essentially the same geographical theatre as the first 3. Could be significant. But get hold of the legs, and the toes are brittle, are they not? They're weak. And in the days, now we come to the supreme moment. We should be playing the Handel's Messiah at this point. The kingdoms of this world have become the kingdom of God. We should be playing the Hallelujah chorus, jumping up and down, because in 244, what have we got? Who's going to read that? Me? Somebody. I think it's me. In the days of these kings. In the days of these kings.
Where are we at?
44. This is the memory verse par excellence. The God of heaven, hence the heavenly kingdom, King of heaven, will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed. Aren't you sighing a sigh of relief? And that kingdom will not be left for another people. It will crush and put an end to all these earlier kings, obviously, kingdoms. But it, the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God, will itself endure forever. This is of high interest to you because you are training to be that kingdom. It's not only, isn't it great the world's going to be at peace? It's, yes, this is my destiny. All of that then, is, back to Vicky's point, is unpacked as we go through the book, and massively unpacked in the other prophets and the whole of the New Testament. It endures forever. Let's do 45. Let's do it, please.
Inasmuch as you saw that a stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it crushed the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will take place in the future. So the dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy.
Good. Okay, pause there. God has made known to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, what will take place in after this. That was the phrase we had close to Acharit HaYamim, the last days, was immediately interpreted as after this, and here you've got that same expression again. So after this, in that distant end of the days scene, this is what's going to happen. Well, the stone, no argument about that, is Jesus. In the New Testament, he's the stone that crushes all of the other kingdoms. A stone cut out without hands. That's taken by all commentators to be the Messiah, if you're a believer in Christ. Without hands, and it crushes the iron at its weak point. And then, this is what the great God has made known. That's the gospel of the kingdom. See, we're dealing here with the gospel. This is the gospel about the kingdom. If you were Jesus, Messiah, wouldn't you come in bursting with information from here? Of course you would. Jesus loved the book of Daniel. Therefore, any attack on the book of Daniel is an attack on Jesus flat out. Don't go there. Very dangerous. So, he's saying plainly that the kingdom, the good news is that God's kingdom will be set up. God's gospel. And the dream is true, and its interpretation, its explanation is totally trustworthy. I like that. Now 46. Who's got 46?
46. Then King Nebu fell and worshipped Daniel, gave him honor, in order that an offering and incense be presented to him.
Yes.
47.
Truly your God is a God of gods and a Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, since you have been able to reveal this mystery.
Yes.
Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts, and he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief prefect over all the wise men of Babylon.
That's wonderful. What a name.
At Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be in charge of all the affairs of the province of Babylon, while Daniel remained in the king's court.
Isn't that marvelous? What a vindication. He's generous enough to share it with his friends. I love that. These guys were very distinguished, and you as Christians then have to be able to model something of the same distinction in the wicked world.
And then in the next chapter, the king throws them in jail.
Exactly.
That's a joy that is why we have it.
Let's deal with that next week.
Can I,
Spoiler.
can I comment on verse 44?
Yes, go ahead.
Again, this is your friend in Cambridge.
Yep.
In the days of these kings,
Yes,
example, the Seleucid and Ptolemy,
yes,
as is implied by the part of the image on which the stone falls.
yes,
The period in the histories of these monarchies,
yes,
which is more particularly referred to as the reign of Antiochus
Yes.
Epiphanes,
yes,
whose fall, according to the representation of the book,
yes.
was to be succeeded immediately
Mhm.
by the establishment of the kingdom of God.
My dear sir, this guy was Regius Professor of Hebrew also at my college, Christ Church, Oxford. My dear driver, brilliant as you were, he wrote whole lexicons on Hebrew. That is fundamentally false. Because if so, then the Daniel prophecies were a complete failure. He's saying that the kingdom of God is to follow immediately at the end of Antiochus Epiphanes, the 2nd century BC. Did it happen?
Beware the lying.
Beware the lying scribe of, sorry, the lying pen of the scribe, Jeremiah's phrase. Beware, don't be taken in by that. I'm happy to say that Pusey, also Regius Professor at my college in 1860, fought on the right side of this argument. But our friend Driver, good as he is in terms of the detail of language, he's fantastic, was fundamentally lying to you there.
Well, the reason I bring this up
Just
is
wrong.
because this goes beyond even bad exegesis
Yes,
or bad,
it
oh,
does.
you misinterpreted a word
Right,
or
right.
It goes to reality.
Of course.
Like, you
He
know.
destroyed the whole gospel here.
Yeah.
People do not realize that having a PhD or a degree in theology guarantees absolutely nothing. Be very careful with pseudo-learning.
We have
Dangerous. Yes.
some questions
Yes.
here.
Please, let's do them because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Good. What do you got?
Oh, really? Somebody says the fourth kingdom will be based out of Babylon, question.
That's my suggestion. That's what modern commentators, some of them, are getting to. It's my suggestion. It fits better with the theatre of the preceding kingdoms. But that's only part of the story. We have to talk about the Assyrian from the Middle East in
Yeah, they
Isaiah.
want to know how can an Assyrian come out of Rome?
Exactly. That would be my point. Right.
Yeah.
That's
It's
for-
not my
No,
point.
I
It's
actually want to know the answer to that
Right.
question.
Well,
Exactly.
exactly. It's a great question. It is the right question. At our site, we have an article called "The Assyrian in Messianic Prophecy." Have a look at that. It's fun. The Assyrian is straight out of Isaiah 11. So, key point, since that good question was asked, is this: that Paul in 2 Thessalonians 2:8, Paul in 2 Thessalonians 2:8 talks about the Antichrist, the wicked guy that Jesus is going to kill off at his second coming. That's highly significant. Jesus is going to destroy this final wicked Hitlerite character at his second coming. Guess what? Paul is quoting from Isaiah chapter 11, verse 8. Sorry, verse 4. It goes like this for all the children to memorize. Isaiah 11:4. That's 114. Double it and go to 2 Thessalonians 2:8. The 114, 228 connection. Very important. 114, 228 connection. And guess what? Paul is quoting from Assyrian material. And throughout the book of Isaiah, the final bad guy who gets thrown into the lake of fire is the Assyrian. So that would give possible good argumentation for the Middle East being the scene of the final kingdom. Whether that be Iran or Iraq, Babylon, that would be, I have no idea. But anyway, that scene rather than Rome. Anyway, good.
Can I ask you, just because I've
Yeah.
got this like nice little statue drawing in my Bible,
Yeah.
and because it talks about the legs are of iron,
Yes.
and then the feet are
Yes.
iron and clay.
Yes.
They have that the legs of iron
Mhm.
are roan,
Mhm.
and this is
Okay.
other,
Okay.
and then the iron and clay is like a future.
Okay.
There's a gap of
Okay.
time, and then the iron and clay toes
Right.
are different from
Mhm.
the legs.
Okay. I see what they're doing. They're including Rome. That makes actually 5 kingdoms then,
It
with
does.
the extra one. Not necessarily you need that one, but let's not worry about it. But it's good to be aware of the different views. Absolutely.
That might be what's in other people's Bible. In my NASB, that's what
That would, when that was published, that would be. So I found actually in my correspondence with somebody at Dallas Theological Seminary, a guy who wrote a book on Babylon literally being restored, the literal kingdom, I mean, literal city of Babylon. You know that Saddam Hussein was trying to build a palace there. Right? He was cut off. But there is, I think, some good evidence that literally Babylon would be a commercial center in the Middle East. That would be then a Middle Eastern final kingdom. It doesn't matter. We're learning this. You know, we can discard different views and suggest better ones. But anyway, have you got that kingdom picture clearly in mind now? We come back next week and we say, what's the head of gold? You all say Babylon. And what's the second one? That's Medo-Persia. We haven't got that yet, but you're coming to it. Then you get to Greece, Alexander the Great, then you get the last one.
James Baldwin, I was taught that according to verse 40,
Yeah.
quote, the fourth kingdom will break in pieces and bruise,
Yes.
end quote. Can this refer to the Genesis prophecy concerning the bruising of Jesus?
Yes. It could be the bruising of crushing Satan. The breaking of that final kingdom is parallel to Romans, the end of Romans, where Satan will be crushed. And we know that the Messiah is going to crush. So absolutely, yes. Part of the gospel, why not? Jesus gets mildly wounded in that prophecy in Genesis. But he wounds massively. And that's the end of Romans.
That's true.
Satan will be crushed under your feet. So absolutely, why not? It all goes back then. Messiah.
Because Jesus
is
at
going to try.
his crucifixion, he's,
Yes.
I don't want to downplay it, but he's one person.
Of course.
But this is going to be kingdoms of the whole
Absolutely.
zillions of people
Huge, isn't it? Huge stuff.
that he will crush.
Absolutely, he will. He will. He will crush. And that's Psalm 2.
So
I
we're
mean, this is
saying the
amazing.
fourth kingdom has the legs and toes all together, the
Apparently.
iron and then toes.
And the reason for that might be that when we get on to the 8th chapter and the 11th chapter, we find that the fourth kingdom does have 2 major sections. We'll say the king of the north and the king of the south. So if we want to think about that in advance, that's really good. King of the north doesn't suggest Rome. Just remember that one point. The king of the north, this is in chapter 11. It ends as the story has unpacked the detail of it in chapter 11. The 2 operators in chapter 11 are king of the north versus king of the south. Guess who the bad guy is? The king of the north. It doesn't suggest Rome. That would be the west. It doesn't fit as well as it might. This is not to condemn other views at all, but I think we're learning more as we go on some of this. So king of the north.
And we would not say that there's a gap of time between the legs and the feet and
Um,
future.
There has to be a gap somewhere for all of us, right? We have to
Well, yeah.
we have to go from Old Testament to New Testament times. Everybody makes a gap somewhere. That's quite true. Because in chapter 11, you've got some history and some prophecy. Where you make the gap?
But between the legs and the toes is what I'm trying to get.
The legs, on the theory that I'm proposing, is that the 2 legs are the divisions of Alexander's third kingdom. And the last stage of them is going to tell you in 8:23. Chapter 8:23 is key. 8:23 is going to tell you in the last stage of the divided Greek kingdom, the bad guys come.
Sorry,
We have to go.
there's 4 kingdoms of Greece.
Yes, the divisions of the Greek kingdom.
No.
You said the legs.
Right. Greece is not there.
2 of them
Only
might
two
be
is
the
a
legs.
relative.
2 are singled out.
Yeah.
There are 4 divisions.
Yeah.
2 are singled out. Yes, it's divided into 4. 2 of them would suggest strongly the king of the south, king of the north. Part of that 4-fold division of the Greek kingdom might work. We'll see. We'll
That
get to that.
doesn't fit.
We need more information.
No, we need to keep
As we
reading.
read
As we get to the rest of it, I'm trying to anticipate so to give you suggestions that when you come to it, say, oh, that might be true. And we'll see how we go. Okay, let's finish with a hymn? Maybe I could ask Barbara to close the meeting in prayer after we sing. Do you have a hymn for us?